Okay, we are diving straight into this explainer today, and let me tell you, we've got a truly wild one. We're looking at a chilling 400-year-old tradition where thousands of people literally abandon their beautiful homes to go live in makeshift forest huts. Why? Because they are completely surrendering their village to ghosts. Welcome to the fascinating phenomenon of Gan Palon, which translates to fleeing the village. Imagine just packing up your entire life, your family, your pets, and walking past the borders of your own town because for the next few days, human beings are strictly not allowed. We are going to explore a place where a centuries-old supernatural pact forces an entire community into the wilderness. And honestly, the level of absolute dedication to this practice is just going to blow your mind.
To really wrap your head around the gravity of this tradition, you have to understand that during this time, locals refuse to cross the village border even if you offer them massive bribes. They genuinely believe that breaking the rules leads to madness or even death. Ask yourself, would you casually stroll into this village for 10 Lakh Rupees? To put that into perspective, that's over 12,000 US dollars. According to the source material, you could offer a local 10 or even 15 Lakh Rupees and they will flat out refuse you. The villagers basically say, hey, you can cross the border at your own risk, but we're taking absolutely no responsibility for what happens to you. They firmly believe that anyone who breaks this ancient rule will be punished within 3 days. You lose divine protection, and trespassers are said to either face immense physical suffering, lose their minds, or even die.
So, let's look at some terrifying trespasser tales to see exactly why they take this so seriously. According to the locals, there was this state transport bus driver who completely ignored the warnings. The villagers had actually tried to stop him, intercepting the bus at a checkpoint and telling him to take the highway instead, because the village was on total lockdown. But, well, he didn't listen. He drove right past the barricades. As soon as he entered the deserted village boundaries, both he and his conductor were thrown into a state of deep shock. They reported this intense, unnatural heat taking over their bodies, their temperatures dangerously spiking. They described it as a literal, invisible force actively attacking them, physically repelling the bus and stopping them from going any further into the ghost town.
And it gets worse. There is also the really tragic tale of a poor scrap collector who accidentally spent a night in the abandoned village. He witnessed horrific, fiery apparitions and ended up suffering severe mental trauma for the rest of his life. He felt as though hundreds of unseen eyes were watching him. He said it felt like a shadow bound him in chains, and everywhere he looked, the entire village seemed to be engulfed in supernatural flames. This poor guy had just wandered in looking for scrap, completely unaware of the lockdown. As night fell, he experienced the absolute most horrifying hours of his life. The locals noted that after he barely escaped the next morning, he was just never the same. His mental state was completely shattered by whatever he witnessed that night.
And this next story brilliantly illustrates the lingering fear. An old woman named Kakemeki sneaked back in just to grab some sugar. She was followed out by a dark entity and lived in terror of that shadow for the remaining 15 years of her life. She was a local, so she knew the rules, but maybe she thought a quick trip wouldn't hurt, right? She just wanted some sugar for her tea. But as soon as she grabbed it and started walking back out, she felt a heavy, dark presence trailing right behind her. She had attracted the attention of whatever was occupying the village. From that single little mistake, she was tormented. For the next 15 to 20 years, right up until the day she died, she constantly told people that a shadow was watching her, following her every single move. It's stories exactly like these that keep the villagers strictly in their forest huts.
Which brings us to this 400-year-old treaty, the legendary Ghost Pact. We've talked about the terrifying consequences, but we really need to understand why this is happening in the first place. How did an entire community hand over the deed of their village to spirits? The folklore states that two founders, an uncle and nephew known as Mama Banja, killed a demonic boar spirit. Unfortunately, this accidentally incurred the wrath of the local ghosts until the deity Lord Ravalnath intervened to stop an all-out supernatural war. So 400 years ago, this land was basically barren. The uncle and nephew arrived seeking a place to settle. They loved the red soil, they loved the river, but they immediately sensed this heavy, crowded energy. Kind of like thousands of invisible beings were watching them. Following a mysterious trail of smoke, they found an old woman in a hut. But this wasn't just any woman. This was the deity Pavaimata. She revealed that an evil boar spirit had driven everyone away. The uncle and nephew, wanting to claim the land, hunted down and killed the monstrous boar. But there was a massive catch. By killing the boar, they had basically assassinated the leader of the local ghosts. The forest erupted with horrifying screams. A massive supernatural war was about to break out. So the deity Lord Ravalnath, who is considered a form of Shiva and the protector of the region, had to step in and broker a really bizarre peace treaty between the furious spirits and the humans.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is the strict 500-year-old pact they agreed to. Every 3 years, for exactly 3 days, the entire village is surrendered to the spirits, and I mean down to the very last cow. These are totally non-negotiable terms. The spirits agreed to let the humans live there and farm the land in peace, but in exchange, the humans promised that every 3rd year they would completely vacate the premises. They can't even leave a dog behind to guard the house, they can't leave their cattle in the barn. Every single living, breathing human and animal must be cleared out so the spirits can roam freely and reclaim their territory for those 72 hours. And the crazy thing is, the descendants of Mama Banja have honored this incredible promise generation after generation.
Now, let's talk about seeking the deity's permission.
Because logistically, how do thousands of villagers safely coordinate when to leave and when it's safe to return, without angering these entities? You can't exactly set a Google Calendar invite for a supernatural event that shifts states. To coordinate, they rely on this fascinating, highly structured 3-step ritual at the Rameshvar temple. First, the leaders from all the surrounding 12 villages gather together. They take wet rice grains and stick them directly onto the sacred idol of the deity. Then comes the incredibly tense wait. They ask the deity if it's time to perform Gan Palon or if it's safe to return home. If a grain of rice falls from the right side of the idol, it's interpreted as a divine yes, and the drums immediately start beating to signal the village. But if the grain falls from the left side, that's a firm no. They just have to wait, resolve any issues, and ask again later. It's a really striking visual of how deeply faith dictates their daily logistics.
All right, shifting gears a bit, from fear to festival.
While the mythological stories are super terrifying, a really sudden twist occurs when we look at how the villagers actually experience this exile today. You would think that abandoning your home to avoid demonic entities would be a totally somber, terrifying ordeal, right? But human resilience and culture have a funny way of evolving over 4 centuries. A local Christian educator offers a highly rational perspective, theorizing that this ancient ghost banishment was actually a scientifically brilliant way to quarantine and sanitize the village during plague outbreaks. Father Francis, who holds degrees in science and education, respects the tradition but views it through a completely different lens. He suggests that centuries ago, when devastating diseases like the bubonic plague were wiping out populations, the village elders needed a foolproof way to force everyone to evacuate. So, by creating a terrifying myth about ghosts, they successfully got thousands of people to leave their contaminated homes for a few days, live in the fresh air of the forest, and allow the village to naturally ventilate and sanitize. Even the local Christian community participates in this mass exodus today, not out of fear of ghosts, but because they recognize the deeply rooted scientific and communal benefits of the practice.
Today, we see this beautiful contrast where the terrifying supernatural legend has basically morphed into a joyful, electricity-free community picnic that the younger generations actually look forward to. Historically, sure, this was rooted in dread, curses, and fear. But today, this is effectively a massive, mandatory camping trip. The villagers are out in the forest setting up makeshift huts, cooking fresh food on open wood fires, and just spending time together without the constant distractions of electricity or modern technology. Now, the older generation definitely still holds a deep reverence and fear of the vow they made to the spirits, but the younger kids, they absolutely love it. They look forward to January when they can sing folk songs, participate in cultural programs under the stars, and just enjoy a total break from regular life. It's a pretty spectacular transformation of a cultural practice, don't you think?
So, as we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a really fascinating thought. Did these ancient villagers actually invent a brilliant public health strategy disguised as a terrifying myth, inadvertently creating the world's most thrilling communal camping trip? It is truly remarkable to think about. Whether you believe in the spirits of the Chinder village or you lean more towards the scientific brilliance of ancient quarantine methods, one thing is absolutely undeniable. This community's dedication to their history is awe-inspiring. They have managed to preserve a piece of living history for hundreds of years, honoring the promises of their ancestors while adapting it into this beautiful celebration of community and nature. So, I'll leave you with this. Next time you want to organize a massive neighborhood get-together, maybe you just need a really convincing ghost story. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep exploring the incredible mysteries our world has to offer.